Good morning and welcome to Tip Off. I just want to thank everyone. We're getting amazing response on this so far. Thank you. The web hits are better than I thought. The downloads are huge on iTunes and Locked On Jazz. So thank you very much. Hope you're all well. Kind of a gross Thursday. Jazz play the Blazers late today. Come on out. We got two more chances tonight and then Wednesday against Denver. That's an early game, a 6 o'clock game. But if you get a chance, please come out and support the guys. See the youngsters. See the evolution of it all. Two things we'll talk about today. I really think there's some interesting things going on with the Blazers who are in town. And then I've got a very simple question to ask you today that you probably saw as you clicked onto this. Would the Jazz have made the playoffs had they not traded Deron Williams? And I'll give you my answer here in a second. Blazers come in today. Blazers since February 4th are 19-7. And what's really happened with this team, it's a great tribute to Nate McMillan and how they've evolved. They did two things. They embraced Andre Miller rather than fight Andre Miller, which they really had done for quite a while, which was kind of fight the way he played, what he wants to do, and understood his value. The second thing they did is they evolved from Brandon Roy's team into LaMarcus Aldridge's team. Now, the evolution of these two guys, both going in opposite directions, is pretty incredible. I chart offensive players with the Locke offensive ranking, and I probably should update the Jazz numbers here. They probably would be a little ugly, frankly. And some of them particularly would be ugly. Maybe some of one or two guys probably is one of the worst offensive players in the league this year. So we'll check, and I'll update you on those coming up. The Blazers, though, you evaluate them, and LaMarcus Aldridge has become a completely different player. The way the Locke offensive ranking works, it's a combination of two things. It's a combination of offensive efficiency on an individual possession and then a player's ability to get that shot off. I always use Nick Collison as the example. He's very efficient, but he can't get shots off. He's not skilled enough. So his Locke offensive ranking wouldn't be great. There's a real skill in this league to be able to get a shot off. And then it values the guys that use the most efficient ways. So if you're hitting your three at a high level, that's a more efficient than a high level two, and the free throw line's the best. And if you look at LaMarcus Aldridge, 3 years ago, his Locke offensive rating was an 8.5. Okay, well, 0 is the D League level, replacement level. 10.0 is league average. 20 is elite. 30 is all-star. 40 is out of this world. Okay, maybe I'll click on some buttons here in a second and tell you who the best in the league are right now, because I just actually ran the numbers for the entire season. So the best this year of guys that actually play, Dirk Nowitzki is the best offensive player. He's a 39.8. Kevin Martin is 39.7. Dwight Howard is a 37. Nene is a 36. And then followed by LeBron, who's a 35. And as I always kind of say on that, it passes the eyeball test. It tells you kind of the way it should look. Those are the players I think you would anticipate to be up there. So therefore, the statistical measure that I'm using is doing exactly what it wants. Paul Millsap is the Jazz best at 22.0 this year. And then you'd be surprised where Gordon Hayward ranks and Derek Favors rank. They're both pretty high up there. We'll do that maybe tomorrow or the next day. But back to my point. LaMarcus Aldridge went from an 8.5 3 years ago. So, 10 was league average. He's a little bit below. A 9.9 last year, right on league average. This year, up to a 16.2. This is when suddenly, okay, well, his numbers look the exact same, but he's a vastly different player. He's rebounding better, and what it really is he's going to the free throw line. He used to go to the free throw line about 9% of his possessions. He's now going to the free throw line 13% of his possessions. He's much more aggressive. He's going to the rack more, and it's why I talk about Al Jefferson has got to start getting to the free throw line. Al Jefferson has always been negative in this number. This year, Al is a little bit better. Al is at an 8.9. He's where, and that's maybe the best of his career. That is where LaMarcus was a year ago, but Al's got to take that next step next year, which is what he generally has done since the All-Star break. Flip side of that, Brandon Roy of the Blazers has gone from 3 years ago at 25. Remember, anything over 20 is elite. The best in the leagues were at 37. 22 last year to negative 2.5 this year. Okay, so this is he is now a below replacement level offensive player. Why? His free throw shooting, 14% of his possessions at the line, 3 years ago, 13% last year, and 9.7 this year. He's just not going to the line hardly at all. And when you get to a guy, from the Jazz standpoint, like C.J. Miles, he's not shooting well, but he's also going to the free throw line 8.1% of his possessions. It's simply not enough time. That's where Gordon Hayward, and we'll dig into these more, I may have just dug into him enough, is impressively good at 10.2% of his possessions. He goes to the free throw line. That's very high for a rookie. If he were to ever get that up to 13 or 14, he'd be one of the truly elite players in the league. Paul Pierce has probably slid a little as he's gotten older, but Paul Pierce has always been one of those guys who was as high as anyone in the league at 14%. LeBron's at 14% of his possessions. So for Gordon Hayward to be sitting at 10%, Brandon Roy was at 14%, and now he has slipped down. So just kind of a numbers look there, where the Blazers and what they've really done to go 19-7 over the last stretch of games and get in this place, and they're desperate to win tonight because everybody wants Dallas in the first round of the playoffs. They are scuffling badly. Is looking at it from a number standpoint. From the Jazz standpoint, let me ask you this question. Had the Jazz not traded Deron Williams, do they make the playoffs? Well, the automatic answer, everybody, is yes. And my answer is no, they don't. Which really may have made the Kevin O'Connor's guts to make this trade even more remarkable, because they would not have made the playoffs. Let me put it this way. The day they make the trade, they're 31-26. Right? In the last 13 games Deron played, the Jazz had won just 2. For the Jazz to make the playoffs, and the way it's looking, legitimately they would have had to win 48 games. So for the Jazz, down the stretch in the final 25 games that they would have played without Deron Williams, they would have had to go 17-8. There's really nothing about that team all the way back to December 30th when Portland kind of exposed them for some of their weaknesses and problems that leads you to believe they were going to go 17-8. Now, couple into the fact Deron was hurt. I remember vividly talking to Deron in the hotel in Dallas when he got traded, and his first reaction was like, don't they know I'm hurt? Deron has only played 12 games with New Jersey, and he has not played particularly well. He shot 35% from the field, 27% from 3, and if you look back, his final games with the Jazz, he was 8 of 51 from the three-point line in his final games with the Jazz. He was not healthy at that point, which is probably part of the reason why the Jazz had won just 2 of their final 13 games, which Deron took the floor. So now you look at it for a second, you say, okay, do you really believe the Jazz could have gone 17-8 in their final 25 games? Well, Deron was hurt. Let's say Deron does the exact same thing he's done in New Jersey, where he's played just 12 games. Okay, if that's the case, the Jazz without Deron, which is really the same thing they are without Devin Harris, except for they're less good because they don't have Derek Favors. The Jazz have gone 1-7 without Devin Harris. The win the other night against LA was our first win without Devin Harris. Okay, now when you consider that for a second, it really means that had the Jazz, Deron been hurt, missed the same amount of games, the Jazz would have had to go in the 12 games Deron played so far, 11-1 to make the playoffs. There's a lot of other factors there, but I think it's a pretty fair argument to say that the way the team was trending, with Jerry Sloan having retired, that even with Deron, the team doesn't make the playoffs. Well, if the team doesn't make the playoffs, think of the mess this thing would be with Deron Williams right now. You'd be without Derek Favors. You'd be without your other draft pick. Gordon probably wouldn't have developed in the same way. There's some real argument that, and he can't ever tell us if this is what he was thinking. But at that moment, Kevin O'Connor, for all we know, on the day after the All-Star break, evaluated his team. Said, wow, we're 2-11 in the last 13 games without Deron. Jerry has resigned, and we are going to have to play with a younger coach who's going to make some mistakes. And for us to get to 47, 48 wins to make the playoffs, we're going to have to go 17-8. There's no chance. And if we don't make the playoffs, then there's equally no chance that Deron returns. And moreover, our offseason is a mess with Deron, and the upcoming season's a mess because Deron would not accept that. I don't know whether that makes it make any more sense to you, but it's an angle I hadn't looked at before. And if you agree with me that the answer is the Jazz would not have made the playoffs, had Deron Williams stayed, then that trade is even more intelligent and the correct move. Whether Derek Favors develops or not will be whether it was a good move. But it makes more sense And it's more clear to me why they did it, despite what the team has gone through a little bit here. And frankly, the other factor is Karolinko had begun to show signs of breaking down, and with the way he's played in the second half of seasons, and as vital as he is, no sign that Karolinko was going to be able to stay healthy, and Memo was out. And so all of these same injuries with Karolinko and Memo were still going to be there, and it's very clear this team has struggled with that. All right, that's my tip-off for the day. You give me your thoughts, send them to me. Remember, add us as a friend on Facebook at Locked On Sports. We're about to hit the 5,000 friend mark on our regular Facebook, so we're kind of dead there. Follow us on Twitter at Locked On Sports. Subscribe at YouTube, Locked On Sports. Tune in to Bowler Jack, Locke, and Gerard today at 3. I'm off. Bowler will be there. Talk to you soon. Bye, YouTube. You always get the second. Goodbye. I should give you like a secret piece of information right now, and then you should be rewarded for hearing this, but I don't really have one. Do I have anything? We didn't even talk Masters today. Let's see what happens with Tiger. My guess, if Tiger flames out, by the way, it's a big deal. There you go. There's your extra tidbit. That was brilliant insight by me. Bye.